Stimați telespectatori, bine v-am regăsit la emisiunea Shalom Israel, o emisiune despre istoria, cultura, religia și viața poporului Israel. În luna aprilie, la Geneva, a avut loc Conferința Națiunilor Unite pentru discriminare, rasism și persecuție, la care au participat reprezentanții celor 196 națiuni membre ale Națiunilor Unite. Un eveniment deosebit a fost legat de mesajul pe care președintele Iranului, domnul Ahmadinejad, l-a adus împotriva Israelului, cerând pur și simplu încetarea ca existența acestei țări pe fața pământului. Institutul pentru Justiție din Ierusalim a ajutat la mobilizarea peste 1000 de creștini din peste 10 națiuni din continentul nostru pentru a demonstra pe data de 22 aprilie la Geneva, în fața Națiunilor Unite, pentru drepturile omului. Au participat grupuri de creștini din Finlanda, Norvegia, România și chiar din Australia. Câteva organizații creștine s-au unit pentru a forma Fondul de Susținere al Israelului, ca răspuns la conferința Durban 2. Fondul de Susținere al Israelului s-a unit cu o federație a peste 20 de grupuri evreiești conduse de Congresul Mondial Evreiesc, care au desfășurat o susținere diplomatică a Israelului pe durata întregii conferințe Durban 2 de la Națiunile Unite. 500 de participanți la meeting au purtat tricouri pe care era scris Israelul, democrația noastră în Orientul Mijlociu. De asemenea, sute de persoane au purtat pancarte pe care era scris Zionismul, răspunsul nostru la rasism, și condamnarea democrației în Israel este o ipocrizie. Printre vorbitorii la meeting s-au numărat fostul ministru al Justiției din Canada, domnul Irvin Kotler, fostul dizident sovietic și membru al Parlamentului Israelului, domnul Natan Sharansky, și Kalev Mayer, fondatorul Institutului pentru Justiție din Ierusalim. Conferința Durban 2 de la Națiunile Unite a fost o nouă platformă pentru președintele Iranului, domnul Ahmadinejad, de a lansa un atac antisemit în ziua aniversării nașterii lui Hitler. Ahmadinejad a început prin negarea Holocaustului, spunând că regimul sionist a fost creat sub pretextul suferințelor evreilor și a Holocaustului, a cărui realitate este ambiguă și sub semnul întrebării. El a vorbit ca un Hitler al vremurilor noastre. Zioniștii, spunea dânsul, care sunt egoiști și necivilizați, au reușit să penetreze în structurile economice, politice și legislative, mass media, companii și sisteme financiare și agențiile lor de securitate și spionaj. Ei și-au impus dominația într-o asemenea măsură încât nimic nu mai poate fi împotriva voii lor. Atâta vreme cât vor avea puterea, nu se va face dreptate în lume. Este timpul ca zionismul, care este rasismul întruchipat, să fie distrus. Zionismul mondial abuzează sentimentele religioase și apelează la religie pentru a-și ascunde fața urâtă și plină de ură, spunea președintele Iranului. În timp ce Ahmadinejad vorbea, reprezentanții țărilor europene s-au ridicat din sală și au plecat. Dar acești politicieni nu au înțeles ceea ce s-a întâmplat, pentru că după ce Ahmadinejad și-a terminat mesajul, ei s-au întors în sală, cu excepția Republicii Cehe. 10 țări au boicotat conferința Durban 2: Canada, Israelul, Statele Unite, Italia, Australia, Noua Zeelandă, Olanda, Germania, Polonia și Republica Cehă. Restul națiunilor au rămas la conferință, legitimând acest for, care a fost de fapt un prilej de manifestare a urii. Sarcina scrierii rezoluției conferinței Durban 2 contra rasismului și discriminării a fost dată Rusiei pentru scrierea draftului, Libiei, care deținea președinția conferinței, și Iranului, care deținea vicepreședinția conferinței. Pentru noi acest lucru este o împlinire a profeției din Ezechiel, capitolul 38, versetele 38 la 39. Alianța iudeo-creștină, care a crescut în ultimii ani, este o alianță de oameni care împărtășesc valori comune. Condamnând răspândirea religiei prin violență, rachetele Qassam și Katyusha, Alianța iudeo-creștină este împotriva extinderii fascismului islamist prin folosirea bombelor umane, deturnarea de avioane și Dumnezeu să păzească prin folosirea armei nucleare. Alianța iudeo-creștină recunoaște importanța susținerii Israelului ca singura democrație în Orientul Mijlociu. Ea respinge afirmația că zionismul este rasism și declară cu tărie că zionismul este singurul răspuns la antisemitism. Alianța iudeo-creștină aduce aminte că 6 milioane de evrei au fost omorâți cu brutalitate în Holocaust. Ea afirmă astăzi numărul de 6 milioane prin numele și memoria celor dragi care au pierit în urmă cu 70 de ani și spune cu o singură voce: acest lucru nu se va mai repeta. Alianța Iudeo-Creștină este deosebit de preocupată de faptul că nu numai Conferința Durban II a fost capturată, ci și Consiliul Drepturilor Omului a Națiunilor Unite. Fiecare se întreabă cum este cu putință ca Ahmadinejad, un lider care a cerut deschis distrugerea Israelului, un stat membru al Națiunilor Unite, să fie invitat ca oaspete de onoare la acest summit, într-o națiune ca Elveția, care ar trebui să promoveze drepturile omului și să lupte împotriva rasismului. Europa a învățat deja în mod dureros că nu poți să tratezi un tiran ucigaș cu indiferență. Alianța Iudeo-Creștină apreciază la cel mai înalt nivel viața și dreptul fiecărui individ la protecția și respectul trupului său. În mod deosebit, protecția copiilor. Alianța Iudeo-Creștină este împotriva indoctrinării militare a copiilor, condamnă folosirea copiilor pentru atacuri sinucigașe cu bombe sau scuturi umane în lupta armată. Alianța Iudeo-Creștină condamnă executarea copiilor, așa cum are loc astăzi în Iran. Privind Conferința Durban II ca o palmă dată mișcării drepturilor omului în întreaga lume, cine va vorbi pentru drepturile creștinilor palestinieni care sunt torturați și uciși de militanții Hamas în Gaza? Cine va condamna folosirea ambulanțelor pentru a transporta teroriști din Gaza în Israel? Cine va condamna folosirea școlilor, spitalelor și caselor de rugăciune pentru operațiuni militare? Cine va vorbi pentru civilii nevinovați care au fost masacrați în Sudan, Cambodgia și Somalia? Cine va condamna sclavajul care se practică la nivel mondial și traficul de femei? Am pierdut discernământul de a deosebi între bine și rău, între dreptate și nedreptate? Alianța Iudeo-Creștină imploră liderii națiunilor să oprească lupta împotriva Israelului și să înceapă lupta împotriva rasismului, terorismului și genocidului. Vom da oare dreptul de a stabili agenda drepturilor omului la nivel global unor națiuni ca Libanul, Iranul, Sudanul, Arabia Saudită, Angola, Pakistanul și China? Au dreptul aceste națiuni care încalcă sistematic drepturile omului să stabilească standardele morale pentru întreaga lume? Alianța Iudeo-Creștină este profund îngrijorată de faptul că întreaga agenda Națiunilor Unite a fost confiscată. Oare Organizația Națiunilor Unite nu a fost creată pentru a opri vărsarea de sânge, pentru a stopa crimele odioase, genocidul și sclavia, pentru a descuraja intențiile de cucerire a lumii de către orice lider, națiune, rasă sau religie? Din nefericire, Națiunile Unite au devenit o organizație care promovează mai mult greșelile umane decât drepturile omului. Chemăm prietenii din Europa și întreaga lume, spune Alianța Iudeo-Creștină, să stea alături de noi în aceste ore, care ne aduc aminte de 1938, când democrațiile lumii au decis ca în loc să reziste ambițiilor expansioniste ale lui Hitler, să-i facă pe plac. Aceasta a dus la negarea drepturilor civile ale evreilor, iar mai târziu milioane au fost exterminați în multe națiuni ale Europei. Astăzi, dreptul la existența ale Israelului este negat și aceasta nu se va opri aici. Nu trebuie să fii profet ca să înțelegi ce mare distrugere va fi adusă în vest de islamismul radical dacă acești tirani nu sunt opriți astăzi. Noi credem astăzi, la mai puțin de un secol de la instaurarea celui de-al treilea Reich, la mai puțin de un secol de când sângele a milioane de tineri a fost vărsat în Europa, că Europa mai are o șansă. Într-adevăr, întregii lumi este mai dată o șansă. Este timpul ca să privim în ochi acest al patrulea Reich și să declarăm împreună cu toți, nu se mai întâmpla încă o dată.
Now, it's too early to declare victory, but I think we can say with complete confidence that the enemies of Israel and the enemies of human rights have lost at Durban this time. Yes, Ahmadinejad's message of hate was applauded by other bigots who sat in that room. Some were just diplomats. Diplomats who don't like not to clap because they have to show their diplomacy. Others were villains. Others who clapped because they supported this horrible message, this incitement to genocide. As my friend Irwin said, a man like Ahmadinejad shouldn't be speaking at the UN. He should be brought by the UN in front of a court, indicted for incitement to genocide, and sentenced to spend the rest of his life in a prison. In Iran, he wouldn't get that treatment. Because of you, ladies and gentlemen, because of you, Durban 2 is not going to repeat of Durban 1. Now, you can't cleanse Durban 1. It would be like having Nuremberg 2 after Nuremberg 1. We're not only interested in the words, the technical phraseology. That's bad enough because it repeats and adopts Durban 1. That's not the point. Durban 1 wasn't disgraceful only because of its lyrics, but also the music. The Nazi marching music, literally, that engulfed the streets of Durban and made it difficult for a young Jew to walk in peace. It reminded people of what it must have been like to live in Nuremberg in the 1930s. Consider the number of patents, the number of NASDAQ listings, the number of environmental innovations done by Israel in its 60 years, and compare it to what other European nations have done in 100 years. And imagine what the peace dividend would bring. Imagine if Israel could literally turn its spears into plowshares. Imagine what a dividend it would produce for world peace, for world health, for world environmental concerns. If every other country in the world had Israel's freedom of speech, Israel's freedom of dissent, Israel's Supreme Court, which is open to all without restrictions, without standing case in controversy, justiciability barriers, if only the Human Rights Council had countries like Israel sitting on it. Instead, Israel can't serve on that or other councils. If only nations of the world had representatives like Natan Sharansky representing it and being the face of goodness and freedom and liberty instead of the Ahmadinejads of the world. If only, if only. And when the best is called the worst, one has to turn one's eyes to the accuser. And one has to ask why. And the answer is very simple. Why is the world so obsessed with Israel? In order to change the subject. Shelby Steele, who's a great, great African-American commentator and speaker, made the point so eloquently yesterday and 2 days ago. Changing the subject. Changing the subject from the failures of third world countries. Changing the subject from the fact that Zimbabwe becomes free and then returns to tyranny. Changing the subject from the fact that Algeria wants to be a democracy, and yet it would vote in people who would cease allowing any freedom or democracy. Changing the subject about the failures all around the world. Changing the subject about how the Iranian Revolution has destroyed the lives of so many people in Iran. It's so easy to change the subject. All you have to do is talk about Jews. I'll never forget the story some years ago when Harvard imposed a quota system and wouldn't allow Jews to be admitted as students. And the president of Harvard, a racist named Lowell, said the reason for it is Jews cheat. And a learned hand, a great jurist, not Jewish, wrote to the president of Harvard and said, "But Christians cheat too." And Lowell said, "You're changing the subject now. We're talking about Jews." Well, you can't just do that. When you talk about human rights, you can't have special human rights for Jews. You know, they're conducting an investigation now of Israel, of Israel's war crime. Israel conducted itself better than any other nation in the world faced with comparable threats. Don't believe me? Listen to people like one of the leading experts on military law and military justice, Richard Kemp, a major colonel in the British Army. Israel, he said, had very little choice other than to carry on with its military operation until it reaches the conclusion it needs, which is to stop Hamas from firing rockets, etc. Then he says, "From my knowledge of the IDF and the extent to which I've been following the operation, I don't think there has ever been a time in the history of warfare when any army has made more effort to reduce civilian casualties and deaths of innocent people than the IDF is doing today in Gaza." 100,000 phone calls, leaflets, Did it do a perfect job? No. Did every soldier behave perfectly? No. You don't judge a democracy by how an 18-year-old kid drafted in the army deals with crisis during the fog of war. You judge a democracy by the way the senior people deal with the soldier after reports have been made. And the Israeli government and the Israeli army is well known for looking hard at reasons for failure. Look at what happened after Shatila and Sabra. You didn't need an international court to look into that. The Israelis had their own investigative agency, and they came to some very, very harsh conclusions about the actions of soon-to-be Prime Minister of Israel. And that became a stain on his career. Other actions as well of Israel have been scrutinized from within. And human rights requires that you go after the worst first. You look at what's happening in the Sudan. You look at what's happening in Rwanda. You look at what happened in Cambodia. But the world changed the subject. While it investigated Israel, hundreds of thousands of people died in Darfur and in the Sudan. I'm writing a book called The Second 6 Million, in which I will prove that since the Holocaust, since Never Again, since the Shoah, 6 million additional people have been subjected to genocide because the world has focused obsessively only on Israel. We want to hear about Rwanda? No. The UN won't look at Rwanda. We won't look at 100,000 or 200,000 or 300,000 being killed. No. We want to look at why a particular terrorist may have been killed and 1 or 2 civilians who were human shields may have been killed with them. That's more important than trying to stop hundreds of thousands of deaths. Only in the Orwellian world of the Human Rights Council and in the Orwellian world of the United Nations. We who truly believe in human rights understand that the worst has to come first, and the worst who are doing the worst things. And there are no remedies from within. There are no opportunities. There's no dissent. There's no judicial system. In Israel, it's very easy. You don't like what the Israeli government's doing, call Haaretz. They'll write a front-page story about it. You don't like what Israel's doing, go to the Supreme Court. They'll render a decision. You don't like what Israel's doing, vote them out. Get new people in office. You can't do that in Iran. You can't do that in the Sudan. You can't do that in most other parts of the world where human rights violations occur. So why fritter away the resources of human rights on investigating ad nauseum a country which is the very best and has the best forms of relief? Why? Why did our friend, a decent man, Richard Goldstone, accept the role as token Jew to investigate Israel and only Israel? Oh, he's going to investigate the Gaza and Hamas too. And sure, Richard Goldstone in the UN, we know the end result. It's going to be even-handedness. Even-handedness. Diplomatic speak. Yes, Hamas is bad and Israel is just as bad. Yes, it's just as wrong to fire rockets at civilians as it is to fire rockets at those who are firing the rockets. There will be no real analysis of human shields. No real analysis of the quadruple war crime that Hamas commits every time it sends a rocket. It sends a rocket to kill civilians. They're anti-personnel bombs. They're sent during school hours. It's sent from behind human shields. It's sent for purposes of destroying a nation state of the United Nations. And it's sent in violation of Charter Article 51, enabling self-defense. 4 war crimes with 1 rocket. And Israel responds completely proportionally. What does proportionality mean? Proportionality means you don't do anything more than that which is necessary to stop the rockets. Israel acted underproportionally in the Gaza. It didn't stop the rockets. It simply slowed them down. It could have stopped the rockets. It had every right to enter Gaza City. But it chose, for prudential and moral reasons, to declare partial victory in order to save as many human lives, civilian lives, as possible. So the case for Israel is a case that's easily made if you're just willing to listen. The case against Israel's enemies is also an easy case if you're just willing to listen. You know, people say, we're progressives and we support Israel. They say, we're progressives and we support Israel's enemies. That's not a progressive cause. Ahmadinejad is the direct, literal heir of Adolf Hitler through the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, with whom Hitler spent the war years. You can trace directly the Hamas charter to the Nuremberg rallies. They virtually copy each other. It's not a progressive cause to support Hamas. It's not a progressive cause to oppose the one government in Israel that favors all the progressive issues of the day, ranging from women to gays to environment. That's not a progressive cause to oppose them in the name of people who oppress women and execute homosexuals? Where are the liberals? Where are the progressives? Where are the people who claim to be speaking in the name of decency? Why are they choosing the enemies of decency over those who support decency? And my students ask me sometimes, can the whole world be wrong? And the answer is yes. When it comes to Jews, the whole world has been wrong before. They were wrong when they said we murdered Christian children to drink their blood for Passover. Everybody believed that. Everybody believed that. People in Syria and Lebanon and people who watch television coming from the Middle East still believe that. Of course it's wrong. Yes, the whole world can be wrong. And our job is to make sure that the world at least listens, hears, understands, knows what their conclusions must be, knows what side justice must be on. So we have a job to do. It's going to be a very difficult job. The case can be made. People will hear, but will they listen? Will they listen? And that's your job. And I want to spend the last 30 seconds of my talk talking about the young people and the future. You have a much harder job than we had. When we were growing up, everybody loved Israel. 6-Day War, wow, we beat our chests. I'm Jewish. I support Israel. Everybody liked you. You know, you supported Israel, people wanted to go out with you, date you. I recently had a student at Harvard who came to me and said, I need you to give me tshuva during the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, the 10 days of repentance, because I never speak up on behalf of Israel. I say, why not? He said, I won't get dates if I speak up on behalf of Israel. So I started a campaign at Harvard, you know, support Israel, date a Zionist tonight. It worked, it was nice. But the point was that it was not cool. It was not cool. In my generation, it was easy. Your generation is much harder. Your generation, speaking up in support of Israel, sometimes will result in losing friends. Sometimes will result in becoming more unpopular. I don't envy you the difficulty of your position, but there is right and wrong in this world, and there is a morally correct thing to do. You know, we can't blame our grandparents. They didn't stand up during the 1930s. They were voiceless. Canada, for example, their famous interior minister's statement, even one is too many, talking about Jews coming into Canada. On the floor of the United States Senate, Senator Bilbo talking about keeping the kikes out. And somebody said, we're only talking about little children, 5 or 6-year-old little children, they're cute little children. And he said on the floor of the Senate, sure, they're cute little kids today, and in 15, 20 years they'll be kikes. Keep them out. We had no power. We had no power back in the 1930s. Mearsheimer and Walt are right about one thing. We do have influence. We are listened to. We use the democratic processes. We use our hard-earned money. We have lived the American dream, the Canadian dream, the European dream. We've contributed more to our societies proportionately than anyone else. So we have the right, as participants in democracies, to participate effectively. Of course there's an Israel lobby. Thank God for it. I wish it was stronger and more powerful. Lobbies are very important in the United States. That's the way business gets done. There's an NAACP lobby, an ACLU lobby, a lobby for old people, a lobby for gays. All of these are good causes. They need lobbies. We need you, the young people, to be our lobby with the young people. We need you to develop new technologies. We're accused of controlling the media. Let's at least learn how to use the media. Let's learn how to use it effectively. Let's start Facebook programs. Let's start groups. Let's use Twitter. I don't even know what these words mean, but use them. They're very important. I spoke at a news conference this morning. They gave me something, I thought it was a cigarette lighter. It turns out to be a memory chip. It's very important. You folks know what these things mean. Use them. Use them effectively. Make the case for Israel. 50 years from now, we want your children and grandchildren to look back, not the way we look back at our grandparents and our great-grandparents. We want your children to look back and say, they did it. They made a difference. They turned public opinion. They persuaded people to support justice, peace, and the state of Israel. Thank you all very much.
Bon, pour ceux qui ne le connaissaient pas, vous savez maintenant qui est Alain Dershowitz. C'est un honneur pour vous de m'applaudir. Alors, il a 10 minutes avant de prendre son train pour répondre à des questions.
We are living in Israel, listening to you that you are so optimistic in every sense, because I heard you several times. we really feel that we are alone in many cases, and we are seeing the power of Iran and being afraid in a sense. So what do you say?
First, you're not alone. We are with you. We will be with you. We will be with you no matter what you face. We will support you. We will do everything in our power to protect you. Now, Israel never asks for military direct American soldiers, Canadian soldiers. Israel has one of the best armies in the world. But it's facing a nuclear threat from the first suicide nation in history. Remember, it's not only Ahmadinejad. Remember, Rafsanjani infamously said a couple of years ago, if Iran gets the bomb and bombs Tel Aviv, God forbid, and kills 3 to 5 million Israelis, Israel will retaliate by dropping a bomb and killing 10 to 20 million Iranians. But he said there are more Muslims than Jews. We could accept that kind of trade-off. A country with that kind of attitude, reflected by its more liberal previous and perhaps future leader, is not a country that can be trusted with nuclear weapons. It's, again, the moral equivalency argument one hears all the time. Some people say, well, if Israel has a nuclear weapon, why shouldn't Iran have a nuclear weapon? Well, for very obvious reasons. Israel has never used this nuclear weapon. Israel has pledged not to be the first to introduce it into the Middle East. Israel's goal is never, never, never to use a nuclear weapon under any circumstances, because there's a no-win situation there. And Iran will use its nuclear weapon. It may not use it directly. It may filter it to terrorists in Hezbollah to create and construct a dirty bomb. It may use it against the United States. It may use it against France. It may use it against Italy. We don't know. The Jews are always first, but they're never last, as Benjamin Netanyahu constantly reminds us. And so, as part of American foreign policy, it is essential, American foreign policy, not to permit Iran to get a nuclear weapon. Israel will make the ultimate decision whether it has to use military force. I hope and pray it doesn't have to use military force. This would not be an easy military action, not like Osiris in 1981, where one casualty and an entire nuclear facility was set back 10 years, something for which the United States condemned Israel in the Security Council and then thanked Israel 10 years later when Iraq attacked Kuwait and would still be in Kuwait today if it had a nuclear weapon, if not for Israel. So you think of Israel's contribution to world peace, think of it in terms of Iraq being in Kuwait today. And that's why we are there for you. We are there for you not only because we love Israel, we support Israel. We are there for you because it's the right thing. It's the right policy for the United States of America, for Canada, for Western Europe, for all Western democracies. In Ahmadinejad's speech, he not only attacked Israel, he attacked all liberal democracies. He wants to see the end of liberal democracy. He wants to see the end of your right to walk out of your house alone without being accompanied by a man. He wants to see the end of your right to drive a car. He wants to see the end of your right to determine what occupation you take. This is an attack on Western democracy. And so we're for you and we'll continue to be for you. And we hope you will do a good job in defending yourself when it comes to it. And sometimes you don't make our life easy. Sometimes you do things that are a little hard to justify. I'm not going to talk about the new foreign minister of Israel, but that didn't make our job easier. And there are other things that haven't made the job of defenders of Israel easier. The use of cluster bombs at the very end of the Lebanon war is not something I could defend, nor is it something I did defend or would defend. As a friend of Israel, I'm also a critic of Israel. But I apply, if I were an Israeli, I'd be a much tougher critic of Israel. Because you are entitled to demand more of your own country than you demand of any other country. But I'm not an Israeli. I have not voted with my feet. I have the right to make Aliyah. I have not done so. I'm an American. So I have no right to judge Israel by any standard other than the standard by which I judge every other country. And by that standard, Israel shines. One or two more questions.
How can we be stronger than people who are 10 times more than us? By only with democracy. I don't have the answer because I'm not stupid also.
It's a very good question. Right from here, the reason I have to leave as soon as my questions are over is I'm jumping on a train to go to France. It's a very difficult question. What do you do when you're so outnumbered? Obviously, the short-term solution is be more effective, lobby, organize, contribute to campaigns, do all the kinds of things you can do, use the resources you do have, intellectual, moral, economic, etc. But in the end, in democracies, numbers count. And Jews, of course, today are having fewer children than almost any other group. Europeans in general are having fewer children, but Jews even fewer. Israeli, secular, moderate, centrist Israelis are having fewer children. Arabs, Haredim, are having more children. Demography matters. In the end, I think what we have to do is reach out to moderate Muslims, and there are many, many. In the United States, for example, we've created great alliances. I know in Canada the same thing is true. Irwin Cutler represents a district which has many Muslim constituents who vote for him. And one must never, ever, ever generalize based on religion. And one must create a stake for our Muslim friends and neighbors in the democracies, as we've done in the United States, as Canada has done, and as France has done less successfully, and as Britain has done less successfully. And I think creating coalitions with other groups. We're trying very hard in the United States to create coalitions with Latino and Hispanic Americans. After all, by the year 2060, half of America will be of Latino or Hispanic background. We've already done that with the Cuban community. We're working on other communities. We're working very hard on the Asian communities, which are now very important constituencies in college and universities. Asian kids are doing phenomenally well in university settings. People call them the new Jews. They work so hard. They never sleep. They, without generalizing, they have become incredibly successful and are, in many ways, the future. So we create bridges. We create coalitions. But bridges go both ways. And when you give, you must receive. And we must create coalitions based on hardball considerations. And that's the way democracy works. Look, Jews made a decision many, many years ago, before any of us were born, that they're never going to prevail by numbers. If they wanted to prevail by numbers, they would have a different attitude toward conversion. They would go out and do what the Mormons do. They would go out and do what evangelical Christians do. We don't do that. We never have prevailed on the basis of numbers. And we have to figure out, within the context of democracy, how to prevail without focusing on numbers. Numbers are very important. One of the most important reasons for a two-state solution is the realistic demography of Israel today. And one must take into account democracy comes first. That's the essence is democracy. Zionism is a challenge. Nobody ever gave Israel the right to be a Jewish nation or to be a Zionist nation. We hope that that will happen. But the given, the constant must always be democracy. Everything else you struggle for. Then we hope for the best result. But numbers are a challenge, and it's a great, great, and important question. Golda Meir had a simple answer when asked. She would say, you want to solve the problem? What are you doing sitting and listening to me? Go home and make babies. I can't give you that advice. Sorry. What do I think of the Obama policy? Look, I'm an American, and I vote based on what I think is best for America. Support for Israel, I think, is best for America. I would never vote for a candidate who opposed Israel. All three major candidates that really had a realistic chance, all of the major candidates strongly supported Israel. McCain, Hillary Clinton, who was my particular favorite. My wife and I supported Hillary Clinton in the primaries, but Barack Obama was our student at Harvard. I knew him at Harvard. I knew Michelle, his wife, at Harvard. I've known Hillary Clinton since 1970. And, when you get to be my age, the people who are running are personal friends. And I supported Hillary Clinton, but once it was clear that Obama was going to win, I supported Obama. I think Obama will be very good for Israel. He certainly has surrounded himself with people who are very supportive of Israel. Everything he said is supportive of Israel. When he went to Sderot, he said, if my children's homes were being subjected to rockets like this, I know I would do everything to stop them, and I know that Israel will do the same thing. He has a policy of engagement. I support that policy of engagement. Some of my friends don't. I think you engage, you reach out. The way he handled the Somalian pirates, for me, was the perfect example of how you deal with negotiations and engagement. You talk, you negotiate, you try your best, and if they're going to kill the American, you kill them before they kill the American. That is, in one hand you extend the olive branch, but in the other hand you keep the gun. And he did both. He gave the order to lethally fire at the Somali pirates. I hope that's the attitude he takes toward Iran. with one hand negotiate, talk, but tell them under no uncertain terms, you will not get a bomb. You will not get a deliverable nuclear weapon, whatever it takes. Yesterday he said he will engage, but he will take no option off the table. I can't tell you what Obama would do if he got that phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning, in which the Israeli Prime Minister said to him, Mr. President, the red line has been crossed. We have a 4-hour window of opportunity. We want your approval to fly over Iraqi airspace. I think he would say yes. I am not confident. I don't know what he would say. He's never been tested in that way. That would be a true test. I hope it doesn't come to that. We all hope it doesn't come to that. Military solutions are necessary, but certainly the last resort in all possible occasions. You know, before Israel bombed Osirik in 1981, Shimon Peres asked for an opportunity. He was against it, by the way. He was against it. He said, give me a chance, I can talk the French out of supplying nuclear material to Iraq. He came up to France. He tried his best. He failed. He went to the UN. He failed. He pursued all peaceful options. Every negotiation tactic was tried. And then, as a last recourse, they had to resort to military. And it worked. It worked brilliantly. But it won't work as effectively in Iran. Iran has learned the lesson of Iraq. Remember, Iran was the first government to attack the Osirik nuclear reactor. One of the precipitating events why Israel had to attack Osirik is because there was a previous attack on Osirik which failed. And it came from Iran. And the Iraqi government, through Saddam Hussein, announced, why Iran are you trying to bomb a nuclear reactor? We're not planning to use it against you, Iran. We're planning to use it against Israel. Red line crossed. That's when Israel made the decision that it had to go in and do what nobody else would do for it. So I hope the Obama administration will prevail. Obama won the election. It's very important that there are Democrats who strongly support Israel and will keep pressure on it. It would have been a terrible mistake to have all supporters of Israel vote for the losing candidate. It's very important to have pro-Israel people on the Republican side, on the Democratic side. It's very important for both parties to feel that they need the support of the pro-Israel community. And so my hope and my belief is that Obama will be good for Israel. Will Obama be good for the settlements? No. I don't support the settlements, so for me that's not a conflict. For those who support the settlements, people might say Obama will be bad for Israel. What I've been pushing the Obama administration on is make a sharp, sharp distinction between security on the one hand, no compromises on Israel's security, and other political and humanitarian issues on the other side. Now, Rahm Emanuel made a statement that frightens me, and I was shocked that he made that statement. It's reported that he made that statement. I hope he didn't make it. But it's reported that he made a statement to some Jewish community leaders saying, look, if you want our support in dismantling the nuclear program of Iran, you're going to have to dismantle the settlements. I don't think that the United States should ever threaten Israel security if it disagrees with other policies. It should de-link those issues. It should say, look, if you don't end the settlements, we'll cut off some civil financial things, or we'll cut back on this or that or the other thing. But security must remain tantamount. And there should be no bargaining on security, no negotiating on security. Security has to come first. Okay, final question. Is there a final question? If not, let me thank you all and urge you, please, let this not be an end. Let you not just heave a sigh of relief and say, we did well in Durban. Let's continue. Let's keep this group together. We will have other battles to fight. We will have other victories to celebrate. Thank you, and may you go from strength to strength.
Domnule Marian Ciocianu, suntem la Teatrul Le Mans, Geneva, unde de-abia s-a încheiat conferința organizată de către Evreimea Mondială ca un răspuns la Conferința Națiunilor Unite privitor la rasism, discriminare și persecuție. Care sunt impresiile proaspete pe care le aveți despre această conferință a evreilor de pretutindeni?
O întâlnire politică. Politica e și bună și rea, depinde cum o folosești.
Credeți că în astfel de zile, de momente în care soarta Israelului este discutată la termen de extinție a statului Israel și distrugerea singurei democrații în Orientul Mijlociu, este posibil un altfel de discurs?
Ce pot să zic? E o parte din planul lui Dumnezeu, dar nu cred că este cea mai bună parte ceea ce s-a întâmplat aici. Sunt oameni politici, forțe politice, economico-financiare care sprijină Israelul, dar din cât am înțeles și din cât am simțit, nu din punct de vedere teologic. Nu ca și popor al lui Dumnezeu, ca și popor care trebuie să împartă legea lui Dumnezeu celorlalte națiuni, ci din punct de vedere politic, democrație, etc., multiculturalism.
Ce părere aveți? Sunt foarte mulți tineri care sunt evrei aici.
E bine că sunt, dar nu știu exact, nu sunt eu cel mai în măsură să apreciez relația fiecăruia cu Dumnezeu, dar pe ansamblu, cât am putut să analizez, e o distanță, nu au un Dumnezeu personal și n-au o trăire. E, cum am spus, a fost o întâlnire politică, e un fapt politic, nu unul cu notație spirituală.
Care sunt așteptările dumneavoastră? Ne îndreptăm acum spre Națiunile Unite.
Avem șofarul aici și sunăm să vină Shechina, Duhul Sfânt să se coboare și în piața de la Geneva și tot ceea ce a lipsit până acum să se împlinească și prin prezența noastră acolo.
Așa să ne ajute Dumnezeu.
Amin.
Vă mulțumesc. Slava Bogu. Hello, Shalom.
Including her most recent book, Israel is Us. Yama is also a member of the Italian Parliament, and she is now the vice chairman of the Committee on Foreign Affairs. Israel was created with the help of the United Nations, a body that too often since has turned its back on the only democracy in the Middle East, on the nation which the UN itself called 60 years ago when it welcomed Israel as a full member state, a peace-loving nation. My name is David Harris. I represent the AJC. I'm also the co-chair of UN Watch, and on behalf of all the sponsoring organizations, I welcome you and I say, I stand here because I stand for democracy. I stand for Israel. I stand here. I stand here because I stand for peace. I stand for Israel. Peace. Peace is not a word that we've thrown into a logo or a tagline. Peace is the essence of who the Jewish people are and what our quest has been for thousands of years. And it is now my great pleasure to introduce to you someone who needs no introduction, I'm sure, a true hero of the Jewish people. Natan Sharansky spent years. I told you he needs no introduction. Natan Sharansky spent 9 years in the Gulag. They tried to break him. Look today, where the Soviet Union is, where is it? And look where Natan Sharansky is. If you want to believe in the power of an individual to change history, believe in Natan Sharansky. Natan Sharansky, hero of the Jewish people.
Shalom. I like your t-shirts.
We like you too.
These days were really good. The last 2 days, just now, we heard very, very moving stories about suffering of people of Darfur and refugees from Sudan who are trying to escape the murderers in Sudan and then in Egypt, and then come to the only country in the Middle East where they're not killed, and that's Israel. And we heard very moving stories about suffering of people of Burma and Zimbabwe and other places, and about the help which Jewish organizations and people of Israel are trying to give them. And of course, we didn't hear it on that conference. We heard it on our conference. Because that conference of United Nations about struggle with racism brought, I hope, a lot of disappointment towards the organizers of this conference, who are the leading racists and dictators of the world. But that conference did give some hope to those like you and me who really believe in the struggle against racism and who see in their failure the beginning of our victory. I have to say that the hypocrisy with which Israel was singled out for bashing the attacks on the Conference of United Nations reminds me my life in the Soviet Union. That was strange Orwellian world of double think and double speak. We knew very well when authorities there speak about peace, they are waging war. We knew very well when they speak about their concern about other people, they are preparing to conquer them. We knew very well when they say that they have to be concerned about the rights of their citizens, they are enslaving their citizens. And it was strange world. Without Holocaust, though I was born and grew in the killing fields of Holocaust, but it didn't exist officially. Without anti-Semitism officially, but with strong campaigns against cosmopolites and Zionists. And every Jew who even didn't know the meaning of this word was the victim of these campaigns. And in that world, if there were a few who will say the truth, they are immediately brought to the trial and accused in saying the lie. And what was the reaction of the world? There were many, sometimes too many, who were saying, we have to understand their logic. We have to understand their grievances, their concerns. Let's try to be their friends. Thanks God, there were others who heard our voices, who mobilized world Jewry, who called evil, evil, and evil empire, and this union between Jewish people of all the world and these political leaders who brought back moral clarity, that what brought down Iron Curtain, and that what made all the world more safe and more free. But now that I'm free, again we have a feeling that we are going back to this Orwellian world, where the only democracy in the Middle East, the only one which is concerned about human rights, is the main target of the attacks for violation of human rights. And who are leading these attacks? Those who never will give freedom to their people, those who are afraid of our democracy. My dear friends, we are in the middle of very difficult struggle. I was in many campuses in Europe and in America, and I saw how frightening it is when the free world starts accepting this language of double think. When you just now saw this small cartoon demonstration of maybe some Palestinians, but 3 or 4 that wear Carta, and some definitely Western liberals who believe that they have to express solidarity. And that's what's happening in many places in the world. When you see in the campus, when there is standing demonstration of some direct supporters of suicide bombers with kufiot on their head, and near them liberal Jews and non-Jews who say that we have Darfur.
Darfur! Darfur! Human rights! Darfur!
You came to the right place. You came to the right place.
Human rights!
Yeah, good.
Unity!
You're right. You came to the right place. So, dear friends, but exactly as I saw on every campus, that the moment there are 3, 4, 5 Jews who are ready to stand up, to debate, to defend Israel, who know the facts, who know how to present them, who know what's happening in Darfur, in Zimbabwe, and who knows who defends them, the situation can be changed. And that is what's happening today now. You saw what, you remember what happened in Durban now. But the moment there were some people, the moment there were some people like those who are standing here, who started speaking 3, 4 years ago against this hypocrisy, who were not afraid to be politically not correct, to go against the stream in their universities or in their countries. And then Israel took a stand, and you took a stand, and look what is happening. We took the air out of this big balloon of Israel as the center of race. We started the struggle for Israel recognized as the only democracy in the Middle East. And I'm sure in this struggle you'll find enough political leaders who will be willing to bring back moral clarity, who will be willing to call evil the evil. And let's take from this that 10 countries refused to come to this conference. The dozens of people left when Ahmadinejad was speaking. Let's take from here and start together with them struggle for real democracy and for real peace.
Stop genocide!
We will win in this struggle.
Stop genocide! Stop genocide!
Natan Sharansky, thank you. Thank you for inspiring us by your example. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad that the gentleman from Darfur is here. Because in the spirit of Emile Zola, j'accuse the Human Rights Council of the United Nations, representing the 192 member states, has never once found Sudan guilty of genocide. The most they could do was adopt a single resolution under enormous pressure. But you know what? They thanked the government of Sudan for cooperation. J'accuse! Because the real victims of human rights are not getting their day across the street. Because that process has been hijacked and kidnapped by those who would vilify the single democracy in the region. And our voices need to be heard for Darfur, for the true victims of human rights, as much as for Israel.
Hypocrisy!
Ladies and gentlemen, we are not alone, as Natan Sharansky said. There were 10 countries that opted out of Durban too. Remember those countries as you leave this demonstration.
Suntem în plină desfășurare a meetingului de suport pentru Israel în fața Națiunilor Unite din Geneva. Domnule David Nag, de ce ați venit să fiți alături de ceilalți suporteri ai lui Israel?
În primul rând pentru că sunt evreu și pentru că toți evrei, oriunde am fi în toată lumea, trebuie să fim uniți și să ținem unul la altul. Mai ales în aceste vremuri când este mult antisemitism, este imperativ ca să stăm împreună și să putem să ne ridicăm vocea. Este foarte periculos. Tăcerea, cea mai periculoasă treabă și noi nu avem nevoie să tăcem. Nu avem voie să tăcem. Noi trebuie să spunem lucrurile care se întâmplă pe față. Altfel, alții iau deciziile în locul nostru.
Este un eveniment unic. Sunt evrei, ortodoxi, reformați, conservatori, evrei mesianici în acest loc, toți împreună. Cum puteți descrie acest eveniment în care evrei din toate direcțiile religioase vin împreună să manifesteze pur și simplu pentru Israel?
Eu pot să spun un singur lucru, în sfârșit. În sfârșit se întâmplă acest lucru și ce aș dori eu de acum încolo, acesta să fie doar un început și să fie din ce în ce mai mulți oameni, nu numai atâția cât vedem acum, ci să fie plin locul acesta, piața aceasta. Și ce am observat, nu sunt doar evrei seculari, religioși, ortodoxi, mesianici, sunt și mulți creștini care nu sunt evrei, au venit aici să-și arate suportul.
De ce este esențial în aceste zile ca tot mai mulți oameni să își exprime suportul pentru Israel?
Pentru că în lume, din nou, se răspândește antisemitismul. Se propagă idei prin care suntem asemănați cu naziștii, se propagă idei prin care suntem acuzați de tot felul de crime și așa mai departe. Când noi ne apărăm patria, ne apărăm țara. Israelul e singurul stat democratic în Orientul Mijlociu. Totuși, Națiunile Unite și toată lumea e cu gura pe noi pentru că ne apărăm. Dar orice altă țară și națiune ar face la fel dacă ar fi atacată de teroriști.
Vă mulțumim pentru aceste cuvinte. Shalom.
Shalom.
And I say, Am Yisrael Chai. Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Long live the people of Israel. That's our central message. And again, we are not alone. Our very last speaker at this rally today, which has brought an estimated 2,000 or more people here to Place des Nations, is Kalev Myers of the Israel Empowerment Fund. If you're wearing a white t-shirt, look down and you'll see you're wearing it courtesy of the Israel Empowerment Fund. And know, please know, that hundreds of the people here among the 2,000 or more gathered are Christian supporters of Israel who have come from across Europe, especially to be here with us, to show solidarity with us. We say thank you as we welcome Kalev Myers.
Shalom. I bring you shalom, greetings of peace from Jerusalem, the place where I work and live. And it's just a privilege and an honor to have been able to bring out so many Christians from 9 different nations in Europe to show solidarity with Israel. Thank you. If there's one thing that is very, very clear today as I stand here and look out across this crowd, which touches my heart, it's that Israel is not alone. There's a Judeo-Christian alliance that's made up of thousands of people like you and I from every continent around the world who share common values. The Judeo-Christian alliance puts the highest value on human life and the protection of human bodies. The Judeo-Christian alliance believes especially in the protection of children. We condemn and we reject the military indoctrination of children. We condemn and we reject the use of children as human shields in combat. We condemn and we reject the mutilation of female genitals, among others. We believe in human rights, and we stand together today to support Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East. We believe in democracy. We believe in the type of democracy, in fact, where an individual in any given election can vote for a list of people that consists of more than one person. That's our type of democracy. And what's happening at this conference of the UN is of grave concern to us. It's a shame. The law firm that I come from was founded by a man named Gideon Hausner, who is a former Attorney General of the State of Israel and the prosecutor in the Eichmann trials. And I'm reminded today of what Gideon said when he opened up the trial. He looked into Eichmann's eyes and he said, I'm prosecuting you today in the name of 6 million souls. The Judeo-Christian Alliance rejects the claim that Zionism is racism. In fact, we believe that Zionism is the only answer to anti-Semitic bigotry. We stand together today and remember the 6 million souls that were brutally and systematically murdered in the Holocaust less than a century ago. And we reconfirm that number, 6 million people whose names and lives still live in our heart. Today I believe that Europe is being given another chance. Indeed, I believe that the whole free world is being given another chance. This is our chance to look into the eyes of the fascists of our day. Less than a century after the Third Reich was in power on this very continent, less than a century after hundreds of thousands of young men lost their lives on this very soil, we need to stand together today and say, never again, 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 never again. Thank you very much for coming out. Thank you for standing with us. We love you.
It is a privilege to be here during this day. You just finished your message, your address to this gathering. How do you feel representing believers in Yeshua and at the same time being a Jew in this gathering?
I'm extremely excited about the hundreds and thousands of Christians who came here from over 9 nations in Europe to stand with Israel. Christians who have been grafted in to the heritage of the Jewish people, standing as one body. It's very exciting to me.
As far as I know, you addressed this call recently, and so many people answered to this call. How you can define this reaction of the believers in Yeshua to come here in supporting Israel?
We're just overwhelmed. We're overwhelmed. It's amazing to us, and it's really a testimony of the love, the unconditional love of Christians for the Jewish people. And it speaks amazing things to our nation. I'm very thankful to God for it.
As an Israeli citizen and also a lawyer who fights on behalf of the Messianic believers for their right to return in the Promised Land, this event is like a promise. It's something that opens a gate for future relationship.
Yes, I really believe that Jews and Christians around the world need to stand together with one united voice. We need to have a united voice within Israel and a united voice outside of Israel. Within Israel, we need to unite together on behalf of freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, freedom of religious choice, and recognition of every Jewish stream around the world and their right to return to the land of Israel. Outside of Israel, we need to have a united voice to stand up for the right of Israel to be an equal nation among nations, the only democracy in the Middle East. We need to strengthen her and support her in every opportunity possible.
We thank you for inviting us to be here and to be a voice of this event to mass media. And if you want to address a message to the Jewish and also Christians from Romania and diaspora?
I just want to say, especially to our Christian friends, thank you so much for standing with Israel. Your support has been heartwarming and greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Vă mulțumim, stimați telespectatori, pentru atenția cu care ne-ați urmărit. O emisiune despre o manifestație a celor care iubesc Israelul și care vor să stea cu Israelul și împreună cu Israelul în aceste momente deosebit de grele, când națiuni întregi cer dispariția lui de pe harta pământului. Suntem convinși că aceste imagini și cuvintele pe care le-ați auzit vor determina să reflectați mai mult asupra situației din Orientul Mijlociu și să aduceți Israelul înaintea lui Dumnezeu în rugăciune și mijlocire pentru protecție, pentru binecuvântare, pentru ca voia lui Dumnezeu să se facă pentru toate națiunile lumii. Vă mulțumim încă o dată pentru atenție. Shalom Israel, Shalom România, fiți binecuvântați!
Rejoice, rejoice, daughter of Zion. not